Hey Sketchy friends, it has been a very long time since I've made a YouTube video. That is simply because I have been traveling so much and it's been a great couple of months, and I wanted to share one of the sketchbooks that I have to share with you in this video. I've got a lot to cover, so I'm going to make this as short as possible, but I would recommend settling in with a hot beverage and enjoying looking at these sketches and seeing what I've been up to. So this is an Etcher B5 hot press sketchbook. I'm really loving the B5 format, and what I found quite interesting is there were quite a few other sketches at the Urban Sketches Symposium in Poznan, which I did attend, that had the same size. So I thought it was quite interesting. What's great about the B5 size is that it's kind of halfway between A5 and A4, so it's kind of like a bit of a Goldilocks sketchbook. The other thing that I realised on this trip is that stickers do actually stick to this cover, which I never thought they did. But I've got a lot of wonderful stickers on here that were given to me during the symposium or that I purchased along the way, and they stick fairly nicely to this otherwise dirty white cover. So let's get on with it then. Again, more stickers from people that go to the symposium. It's kind of a thing that people bring their stickers and different business cards and things like that. But I think stickers do better because people put them on their sketchbook. So this was my very first sketch leaving Johannesburg on the 26th of July, just sketching my food at the Mug and Bean at the airport. Definitely wanted to go for more of a journal-y vibe in this book, so hence the writing at the top there. These are some of the passengers that were waiting at the gate because I was flying. I was about to say I was flying to Ethiopia, but I wasn't. I actually flew directly to London, which is unusual because it's usually too expensive to do that. But it actually turned out for once I could afford the flight to London. It was much cheaper than usual. So anyway, these were some of the passengers. I think I thought of Ethiopia because this guy had clearly visited Ethiopia very recently because of his hat and the cross and everything. And then this was me in London. So the following day, just trying to stay awake, rightly or wrongly, trying some beers and some pitta and some hummus there. And I quite liked how these turned out, and I liked recording what the beer was as well. I was staying in student residence in King's Cross, which worked out really nicely, and they had these floor-to-ceiling windows. So this lovely view out of the window, and this is kind of the side of the glass building here. So I had to sketch that. And of course, I came down with a cold almost straight away. So these were the things that I was purchasing to make myself feel better. Whilst I had my cold, I just sat outside a pub sketching St Pancras Station endlessly for hours, and then with a lunch break in the middle. So yeah, this one took me a long time, and I think it got away from me in the end, but it kept me occupied at least. And I had a really nice chat with a guy on the table next to me who was waiting for a train to Nottingham. And I just remember him being like, "Is that a traffic light?" I was like, "Yeah, why not?" Then I think the following day, I was just wandering around aimlessly really, and I saw this pub. And even though, again, the perspective kind of got away from me, it was still quite a fun drawing. And then I was doing some research in advance of my workshop, which was actually at the end of the 6 cities that I was visiting in the UK. But I happened to be in London, so I was like, let me go and check out St Dunstan in the east, which was one of our locations. I actually only did this sketch, and then, I don't know, I just wasn't feeling very well, and so I left it at that. This came later, right at the end of the trip, but I might as well talk about it now. So we started the workshop just sort of sketching small things like the windows and that kind of thing. Then we did a paint first, draw on top. We came out of the grounds of St Dunstan and drew it from afar or further away. And then in the afternoon we did more of a scene, and it was one of my favourite themes, which is old buildings versus new. So this is a great church in front of the Gherkin in London, and yeah, I really, really love this spread actually. So that was actually the 6th of my workshops, the last one of the places that I went to. I did one-day workshops, 6 different cities in the UK, every other day for 2 weeks. So yeah, it was quite something. So I travelled then to Oxford and then wandered around trying to think about what I was going to which locations I was going to choose for the workshop. So I actually did this paint first, draw on top rendition of St. Mary's Church, which is what we ended up doing as our first exercise in the workshop. And then I was just wandering around other places as well. We ended up doing the Bridge of Sighs here. And then it did start raining in the afternoon, but luckily we had a bit of shelter from the museum, and we did a section of the Randolph Hotel. And I just filled in the page with a beer later and just some other details that I saw. And this other cool building here, we were sticking in a bus ticket, making some notes, that kind of thing. So that ended up really nice. And I had such a fantastic group in every single workshop. Every single person I met was just amazing and put their full efforts into the workshop. And it was just quite overwhelming, actually. It was such a great experience, and one I hope to repeat. I'm hoping I'll go back to the UK next year and maybe do some different cities. That would be fun. And a lot of people on the workshop said they'd be really up for coming again. So that's really cool. So then I kind of accidentally fell into this format of like, right, let's do a paint first, draw on top building. And I'd find a complicated building I feel works really well with this technique. So this is Bath Abbey, which I think works quite nicely. And then we did more of a scene in the afternoon. So this was looking across at the Grand Parade, sat by the river. And then any little bits of space I had left, I'd fill it in with some kind of drink, which usually was beer. And then, any kind of ephemera that I had to stick in, stamps, writing. I'm not that neat when it comes to my spreads, but I think that's okay. I think it just adds a bit of energy to it all. Same thing in Canterbury. So this is Finden's Gate into St. Augustine's Abbey. Sorry about my voice. I am also still ill, even though it's several weeks later. I seem to be picking up all sorts, even though I haven't been sick for years. So I guess it's just my time to be in and out of illness at the moment. So paint first, draw on top, and people did some absolutely wonderful sketches of this. I'll show some on the screen. And then we did a scene, which was this beautiful old cottage across the river, a really beautiful place to sit. It was getting super windy and I was worried about the weather, but we managed to hold off, so it was okay. I got really lucky with the weather the whole time through this trip. Then a very simple line drawing out of my hotel window, just so I could record a little bit of the Canterbury Cathedral, the very famous Canterbury Cathedral. And then my first and only glass of wine on this trip, because it cost me £10. And coming from South Africa, I don't even spend that on a bottle of wine. And it's really good wine as well. So that made me feel not so happy. So I didn't do that again. And then what was nice, though, is that on this trip, I had one of a member of Urban Sketches Johannesburg was over in England visiting her family. She was in London and she took the train to Canterbury and joined my workshop. So this was my glass of wine with her. So that was really nice. And then I moved to Nottingham. Never been to Nottingham before. Never been to Canterbury before either. Same thing. Paint first, draw on top. So this is the council house here. Then we did a scene in the afternoon and I just filled in with some people sketching. There was a fun sticker from one of the pubs, train ticket. And we had such a laugh on this workshop. A bunch of us went to the pub afterwards and it was just really, really fun. Again, just met so many wonderful people. Another wonderful collection of people. It was a smaller group in Bradford, but actually I had a much higher ratio of men, which is very unusual. It's usually mainly female. So there was only 7 of us, but 3 of the students were male. So I was quite happy about that. And again, paint first, draw on top. I was trying to add little flags where I could because it situates you, it tells you where you are, which country you're in. Then found this quite unusual scene. I was really struggling in the afternoon because I wasn't sure where to go or what to sketch. But the back of the Forster train station, there's these interesting sculptures here called Fibres. It's by Ian Randall. And then this interesting poem by a school student that's engraved on these kind of fences across the tunnels there. So it was just like really quite an interesting scene and something I wouldn't normally go for. But everyone was like, oh, this is a bit of a weird one. But we got into it and yeah, it had lots of really fun elements. So that was cool. And these were just some train sketches of people on the train on my way there, actually. So then, yeah, after Bradford, I went back to London and did the workshop there. And then that was my 6 workshops done. So I had a bit more time in London by myself. So I actually went and plonked myself in Trafalgar Square because I've never actually drawn there on location. Unfortunately, the years I lived in London, I wasn't sketching. So I haven't got a lot of these kind of iconic scenes or many scenes of London really, but this was really fun. And a lot of people, especially children, were like wandering up and sort of looking at what was going on because it's just such a playful way of sketching. And I just think it works really well. And it's a real crowd pleaser, this one. Lots of students really enjoy this because they just get to let go and loosen up. So it's really fun. Then I flew to Prague. I sat on the plane on the runway for 3 hours at Heathrow, getting more and more annoyed because I paid a lot more money to go on an earlier flight. And then this flight ended up leaving after the later one, which was cheaper. But anyway, everyone was very calm and no one complained. But it did give me a chance actually to sketch a passenger across the way and my water and my biscuits that they gave out. And then I got to Prague and this was the first scene that I sketched. It was really, really, really hot. So it was, quite a thing to wander around and find something that I felt like I wanted to sketch because it's quite an overwhelming city. Obviously, it's filled to the brim with amazing architecture, whichever way you look. Of course, I had to indulge in some beer tasting because it's Prague. I don't really need an excuse, I'll beer taste anywhere. But yeah, that was really fun. And the manager of this place was so happy, and I shared it on Instagram and they reshared it and she was just so happy, and this was the food that I had. And then I had this awkward space for quite a while, for a few more days. So I actually went back because this was on the 13th. On the 16th, I was in front of this scene and I had this space still. So I actually went back and filled that in. That's absolutely fine. I've got the dates there, so I know what happened. I was at this kind of restaurant which had this nice scene back over the Charles Bridge and these interesting yellow penguins, which are actually an art installation to raise awareness about the plastic in the water and stuff like that. I researched it afterwards to find out what that meant. So that was pretty cool. Of course, a beer. And then in the afternoon, I went to meet up with Urban Sketches Prague, which was absolutely one of the best things I could have done. I met wonderful people, the wonderful couple that run it, who I then bumped into endlessly in Poznan. And I feel like, they just became like nice friends. So I was really happy I went to that. I do encourage you, whenever you travel, to try and meet the Urban Sketches chapter if you have a chance, because it's almost like you have a ready-made group of people to hang out with. So after this, again, it was so hot, but we went to an outdoor bar area and just hung out and chatted, and it was just so lovely. It was a really nice social occasion. The following day, I think actually in between this, after this and before this, there's a day missing because I actually went and got my hand tattooed. I'll put pictures on the screen. Just really wanted a tattoo in Prague, and for some reason just decided to go with the hands just to finish the arm off. So this is the sticker from the tattoo artist Dario, who was just such a wonderful guy, made really good chats. So my hand was very swollen the day after, and it was still quite hot, so I was a bit uncomfortable. But anyway, I did this sketch with my coffee. And then this one was annoying because I was sat on a bench sketching the cityscape over the river, and it just kept like raining. So then I'd go and get shelter, and then it stopped raining. Then I'd draw a bit more, and then it started raining again, and so on and so forth. And I almost gave up because it was really irritating, but I got there in the end. And then after that, I went to Poznan. So I took a 5-hour train over to Poznan in Poland. Had dinner with some really nice people, Andrew James, Eileen Goldenberg, Stephanie Bauer, etc., etc. And we did a very quick sketch after dinner. So this was very, very loose impression of the old brewery that we were in and my wine back at the hotel. And then the following morning we went and sat in the town square. This is the famous town hall where the goats come out and headbutt. It's like quite a thing in Poznan. And then I think later that day is this one, all these beautiful, colourful buildings, really, really fun. We found stamps in like one of the tourist shops. They just had rubber stamps that we could use, so of the goat and whatnot. And I really liked this logo of the beer, which is the goat holding the beer. Goats are a big thing in Poznan. And my friend Nicole bought a whole bag of these old postage stamps from Poland. So you'll see those dotted throughout my sketchbook because she gave us a bunch, which was really nice. This is the famous sort of periscope sculpture installation thing in Poznan, and it was actually the mascot for the Poznan event, as you can see here. A lot of street art all over the place with this periscope man on it. So that's also quite iconic. And then this nice church behind there. Town centre again, or the old square again. Gin and tonic, just mixing it up, you know. And this is one of my favourite sketches. This is from, and I'm going to butcher this, Adam Mickiewicz Square. And there's these monuments to sort of the uprising against communism here, which I have very liberally squished into my scene because I really wanted to include them, even though they were way further off over on the right. So yeah, I wasn't sure about the sketch when I was doing it, or the drawing, but then once I finished it, I actually think this is one of my favourite sketches of the whole sketchbook. I really like it. And then I think after that, the symposium began. So I will put some photos or videos on the screen here. Of course, we had to go and try pierogi, which is one of the sort of the iconic foods of the region, and some beer as well. And then, the symposium started. So the first workshop that I went to was by Olivia Marcus. And if you haven't checked out her work, then please do. Her Instagram handle is om_lapon. I'll put it on the screen. So very much drawing people and crowds, which is definitely a weak spot of mine. But she has a very interesting way of doing it, using just like a really bright colour and then dulling down either the background or the foreground. Absolutely fantastic workshop, and I learnt a lot. And then I sort of started playing with it at other stages during the symposium. This was the first sketch walk. So this is the economics building, I think, of the university. And you can see I'm just doing small sketches because I like to sort of patchwork them in. I think it's really fun. And then the next day I did Roisin Curé's workshop, which was excellent. I've followed Roisin for many, many years. I love her sense of humour and I love her drawing. So when I saw she was teaching, I was like, I just have to go to that. And yeah, it didn't disappoint. She's a fantastic teacher. And what a character. So yeah, we sketched our coffee and pastry. That's the other thing. I got to sit down in a cafe and drink coffee and eat a pastry, which this is something I never do. So it was quite a treat. And then we had to draw people with a different coloured ink in the background. Then we drew the background. On top of it, we drew the people, showing that they're kind of transitory. And then we painted the background, but around the people. It's just such a great technique. Really, really fun. And then this was a stamp that my friend found at the post office in Poznan, and she got us one each. It was absolutely amazing. So I buggered things up slightly by somehow ending up with 2 workshops in one day, which was quite exhausting and definitely not something I want to repeat again. But after Roisin, in the afternoon, I did Peter Rush's workshop. So this was a little exercise we did with him, but we actually drew on the back of cardboard, like cereal boxes. I didn't get to finish, unfortunately, because it was quite a large cereal box and it was also cold and windy as well. We were all really struggling. So unfortunately, I didn't get to finish. I need to get the cardboard box out and see if I can maybe just finish it just for learning processes, or learning purposes. But I'll put on the screen here the throwdown. Everyone did such a great job. A couple of people in particular just did absolutely incredible work. So very inspiring though. And I'm doing a project myself on brown paper shopping bags with colour pencils. So that's why I chose his workshop, because I really wanted to see his process. Then on the Saturday, I had no workshops because I had 2 on the Friday, unfortunately. But the weather also was not great on the Saturday either. So I did go to the sketch walk in the morning. I don't know what I did, but I think from just sitting on a ridiculously small stool, which some of the people I was hanging around with will attest to, I just hurt my neck and my back and everything just hurt. And it was also cold and windy. So I didn't fancy sketching anything big here, but I just ended up sketching the sketches that were in front of me with lots of white space. And I actually really love how this sketch came out. Yeah, just a different approach for me, not sketching the beautiful buildings, but actually just sketching the people. And I really liked it. Then I was so cold, I wanted to go somewhere else. And I wandered around for hours just aimlessly, just wasn't feeling good. And then I went up to this rooftop cafe. Why on earth I decided to do that, because the weather was so terrible, as you can see in this little video. And then it started hailstorming as well on top of that, so they actually closed the rooftop. So this is probably one of the worst pages in the sketchbook, and I think you can see it's just like an absolute mess. It was just a washout of a day, really. However, I did order coffee and cheesecake there, and I really liked this section of the sketchbook page. So, you know, guys, so you win some, you lose some, but this was my disaster page here. So the symposium by this stage was over. We had the big photograph in the afternoon of the last day, and then we had the closing ceremony, and much alcohol was consumed by some of us that evening, but we had some really good fun. I got to hang out with some of my sketchy heroes. Oliver Holler did a cool sketch of me, made a new friend, Per. I'll put his Instagram in the description, but I've been a big fan of his work for a long time, and to get to hang out with him for a lot of the weekend, I'm just such an awesome artist and just such a nice guy. It was really great. This one I was sitting with my friend Eileen Goldenberg, who some of you might have seen I did a live stream with her a while back. She is the official queen of fountain pens, and she did a little workshop for us all after the symposium ended to teach us a little bit about fountain pens, which was amazing. So I sat with her mainly and did all of this. This is actually also one of my favourite sketches in the sketchbook. So that was my final sketch in Poznan. And then I went home. I went back to the UK, and I went to the village that I'm from, where my parents and family members still live. And I just spent most of the time catching up with friends and spending time with my nephew and so on and so forth. But I did manage to get out on another frustrating day where it was sunny and then rainy and then sunny and then rainy endlessly all day. But I managed to sketch one of our local pubs, the Crown, and sketch the church again, which I have sketched previously a long time ago. This basically constitutes my village. But yeah, just doing some looking up about the Crown, and it was interesting because Fleetwood Mac actually wrote a song about this pub. There's a very famous recording studio a few hundred meters from my family house called Headley Grange, and Fleetwood Mac, Led Zeppelin, amongst others, recorded albums there. So the fact that those rock gods have been present in my tiny little village in Hampshire in England is pretty cool, and that they recorded it in this song down at the Crown. And then the church actually dates back to, or it has history tracing back to the 12th century, which is also amazing. So there's a window, one stained glass window inside, which is actually from 1260. So really, really cool history there. And that was kind of all I did at home, because I was just so busy, like seeing people and stuff. And then in the airport on the way back, just some basic drawings. By this point I was just absolutely exhausted. So just trying to think of Dan Archer, really. I didn't take his workshop this year because I took it last year, but I just take his workshop endlessly because it's really something I want to get more into. But just trying to sketch some of the people waiting at the gate and just actually trying to capture some of their conversation is just funny. Yeah, and then just this is just a bag from our first day, actually, because in Poznan they have these St. Martin's croissants. You can only call them that if they're from this region, and the bakeries have certificates in their window to say this is like the actual croissant, it's certified. So I ate a whole one to myself and then felt really, really sick. I think probably the best approach is to go halves with someone. And then, yeah, this sketch from Olivia Marcus's workshop I had done on a separate piece of paper. For some reason, I was just too terrified to do it in my sketchbook. And I actually thought I was going to run out of room, but in the end, I actually ended up with one side left. But otherwise, it is filled, which I'm quite happy about. These are just exercises from Olivia Marcus as well. And then it's nice because there's this pocket in here, and it's just got loads of bits and bobs in there. And I just stuck some random stuff on here too. But yeah, that was that sketchbook. I was very, very happy with this sketchbook, this Etcher B5 hot press. a 100% cotton paper. It's really, really nice to use. I can see how it might be a little intimidating for an absolute beginner because it's a little more on the pricey side and the pages are quite thick. But for a special trip like this, it really was the perfect sketchbook. So I am glad that I did take this one with me. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I do have another sketchbook tour video coming up because right after all of this, I got home for like 3 days and then I went off again and I taught some international visitors in Cape Town and the Winelands. So I've got that whole sketchbook to share with you as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this one. If you do want to learn how to sketch in ink and watercolor, then do make sure you check out my online course, sketchyouradventures.com.